All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Stacy Hoffman Farmer, licensed massage therapist with Mountain Serenity Massage. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Friedemann. He is the founder of Cellular Wisdom and the Fear and Anxiety Solution. He actually started his career in cardiology and holds a PhD in molecular biology. And after almost 20 years in those fields, he actually found out that there was a mind-body-spirit connection that had a profound effect on how we heal and get out of our own way in our lives. So we are really excited to have you here with us today, Dr. Shao. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. And I have to clarify, I didn't find out the mind-body connection. It's certainly something that I believed more and more in as the years passed by. And I also saw more and more the limitations of allopathic medicine, which is why I eventually left it.
Oh, that's great. So now you practice specifically using the mind-body-spirit connection in your fear and anxiety solution, right?
Right, right.
Okay,
Because fear and anxiety is really at the core of so many of our illnesses. Some people say that 70% of doctor visits these days are related to stress, fear, and anxiety, not only because people complain about these emotional problems, but also because they have these physical symptoms that at the root are caused by them. So like high blood pressure, chronic pain. There are these strange diseases that we these days are encountering, like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. Many people feel like they have more allergies and food sensitivities, chemical sensitivity. All those things can, at the root, have an emotional problem, a mind problem that just gets transferred into the body. And I think we really need to address that.
absolutely. I think I agree completely. With massage, I see the same kind of things happening where there's pain, but I can't necessarily feel something that's happening in the muscles specific to what the client is experiencing
Mm.
when they come in to see me. So over the years, I guess I would say, how long have you been working on the fear and anxiety solution? And what have your clients been experiencing since you've been working through this?
Well, I started more than 15 years ago. Actually, I started my medical career like in the late 80s and then shifted into working on what I'm doing now, the mind-body connection, and working on fear and anxiety at about 2002. So it's 15 years. And what I found is in that time that my belief in our innate healing potential has skyrocketed because it's not really the solution or the work I'm doing that heals. It's still the person that I'm working with that's healing. And all we are doing is simply tapping into and unleashing the healing potential that's already inside. And that's just wonderful to see that the body and the mind in collaboration, the mind, body, spirit connection together can really move mountains and can certainly come back to a wholeness and let go of that dis-ease that some people have been struggling with since decades. And then all of a sudden, once the root is addressed, can make dramatic shifts.
That's wonderful. So it sounds like you're kind of a psychologist at the same time. You're leading people into their mind connection so they can heal their body.
Well, yeah, it's more like working with the subconscious mind, because the mind is really divided into the conscious and the subconscious, and you could say maybe the higher consciousness as well. But the subconscious is that deeper part of the mind where all our emotions come from, where our beliefs are anchored in, and also that part of our mind that is the intercessor between our conscious and our physical body. So let's say, for example, I would ask you to raise your arm. You would say, okay, I'm just going to raise my arm. But you're moving, 20, 30 muscles at the same time, contracting, releasing. And all of this is done more with the subconscious at work. And you just consciously had to send out the command. This is what we're going to do. So the subconscious is really a very powerful part of how our body is regulated, how it's working. And it's also that part of us that when we, for example, have a lot of emotional baggage, is bringing that baggage at times into the physical form, maybe for us to pay attention, that we still didn't get the message to slow down or take better care of ourselves, or maybe because the subconscious has such a no, just a limitation in its way to store emotions that it eventually needs to get transferred somewhere else. We don't know the answer yet, but we know that there is certainly a link that is crucial when it comes to the development of health and illness.
Okay, that's interesting. I wasn't thinking about subconscious in terms of how you have muscular movements as well, because again, when you don't think about it, that makes it more subconscious. I certainly don't think about smiling or, raising my arm, like you said,
Exactly.
my feet. It's just something that we do.
Yeah, and same thing when you think about how even our digestive system is really
Mhm.
affected by stress and by anxiety and by our emotions. I mean, often people come to me with digestive issues, whether it's Crohn's disease or an inflammatory bowel disease, and they know that at the core of it is often a conflict, something that they are struggling with. I remember one of my clients who had this. For almost 20 years, colitis, ulcerative colitis, and it's an inflammation, an autoimmune disease of the bowel.
Mhm.
And he remembered that it started right after he did something he felt really guilty for, felt really terrible about, and he never really had let go. So there was always this conflict of I did something bad to someone else. I never apologized. I never did something to rectify it. I don't even know where this person is. Maybe one day this person going to find me. What's going to happen? So all of this stuff was going on in his mind, and it never really released because he never talked about it. And so his intestines were certainly in a constant tension, and inflammation is a sign of conflict and resistance and tension. And once he was able to forgive himself, once he was able to release that tension and really let go of that guilt, he didn't need medication anymore. So it's a quite amazing way of healing also inflammation, autoimmune. When we're understanding, well, it has a starting point. Something is there inside that needs to be addressed and listened to, and sometimes we just don't pay enough attention.
I think that's really interesting that you bring up listening to yourself and the autoimmune diseases, because I've been seeing a pattern over and over and over, and it's coming to me with my massage clients as well, that
Mhm.
people are repressing those kinds of emotions. So
Yes.
no one wants to feel fear, no one wants to feel anger or anxiety or nervousness, and all of a sudden they're manifesting in these crazy ways that I think have been categorized as autoimmune, because we don't really know what started it, and then practitioners such as yourself are really seeing that link, that mind spirit link that's manifesting in the physical body. So fibromyalgia in particular, I do see a lot of that as well. It can cause such pain in such random locations throughout the body. And I'm seeing people that are afraid of something that they may not even consciously remember happening to them. So
Well, and it's often not only one specific aspect or event, it can be just a general fear of overwhelm or a general fear of not really being comfortable in your own body, whether it's you just haven't really found your place or whether you are in a relationship that is demanding and asks you to be different than you are. I mean, there are a lot of reasons that are, when we look behind the curtain, are pretty obvious. But when we don't, then we just stab in the dark, and unfortunately we have the habit to long for comfort. We don't allow ourselves just to realize, well, maybe the discomfort has a reason to be there, just like in a book by the Dalai Lama, which was about happiness, and he described there how people with leprosy don't feel pain, and we all don't want to have pain because pain is something we just feel so uncomfortable with. But these poor people, they don't have a sense of pain in their limbs, and so unfortunately they lose their limbs. It's very often that they have their finger get stuck in the door because they don't notice it, and so then they lose a finger, or they break their feet because they don't realize where they're actually located. And so the pain, which is a warning system, which is a messenger, doesn't exist, and it really is destroying the integrity of their body. And we just have to be more okay with being uncomfortable, because discomfort is not to be just suppressed and pushed away. It is actually just something that needs to be attended to and understood, and it's a loud, clear signal that unfortunately we have not really take the time to listen to and go inside and wonder, what does my body try to tell me? My body doesn't betray me. My body is not my enemy. My body doesn't want to do any harm to me. It just tries to get me maybe back on track or make some
Absolutely.
change.
Absolutely. I think listening to our bodies is pretty key. The underlying theme, of course, of this entire video series is really understanding what your body is trying to tell you and coming to terms with the fact that you're not separate from your body. You know, that your mind and your spirit and your body are all one thing. And I think that your work in particular has really highlighted that circle that we create with the mind body spirit connection. So I think your
Yeah.
work is doing some wonderful things for people, leading them back to recognizing within themselves that they need to listen and really understand what they're feeling and going through.
Well, we can really also identify more in our body the direct metaphorical meaning of symptoms, where sometimes it's very obvious what the body is trying to tell us. So, when, let's say, for example, I had a client who had developed an ulcer, which turned out to be cancer of the lips, just right here, and she had this out of the blue, and she didn't really know why and what was going on. Well, it turned out she came from a quite abusive relationship, and once she was out of it, she, for years, hadn't really dated, but then started dating again and started to let a man come back into her life. And that means, of course, getting close, getting intimate, means kissing, means speaking. And all of that was a part of her mind, at least, too scary. It felt too much like, wow, you're bringing yourself into, again, a situation that potentially can be as harmful and as dangerous as in the past. And so there was a conflict, there was a resistance. And she realized that because it didn't allow her to get close to her new boyfriend, and she needed to stay away, and she felt too ugly to even see him. So it was a form almost of self-sabotage. And when she released that and she realized where this all came from, the cancer healed by itself. And it was quite amazing because doctors later on said, well, we must have been wrong. It wasn't really cancer. It must have been something else because it healed. But I think we just know our body knows how to heal cancer. It's not something that the cancer is bigger and stronger than ourselves, but often there is a consciousness in the cancer. There is something that starts the cancer. And I have many stories where people can go back and say, yeah, I know exactly why
That
what
started.
was going on. And we just need to resolve that. This is one of the major reasons why cancer comes back, because the origin of that belief or decision on a deeper level to develop cancer hasn't been resolved. And that's a very important part of healing, that we identify that.
I think that's a great point, identifying the root cause of things that are happening that you're experiencing. And some can be very recent, some can be very far back in a person's history. And I personally believe that cancer is the ultimate form of manifesting an emotional issue, something that really hasn't been resolved if you're not paying attention to the earlier signals you're getting, maybe a headache or something a little more mild. And then it develops into that further issue that can become cancer. I think that it's a
Some people
progression.
say cancer is a way for for the mind and the body to get out. It's like a social acceptable way to basically give up. And I have seen this at times where I was asking, and I always do ask people that are dealing with cancer at the beginning of the work, whether they really want to live. And of course, at the beginning, there's, yeah, of course I want. But then when they go deeper, there is this stopping and actually reflecting and realizing, well, maybe there is this idea of giving up, or it's more easy to disappear than having to deal with whatever we have to deal with. And that's something also to really realize. When we want to heal, we need to have a strong why on why we want to heal. And if there is any kind of subconscious secondary benefit for the illness, which is also true for
Yes.
fibromyalgia at times, people, and especially women I worked with that are dealing with that, they do feel that there is a secondary benefit, not a conscious, they're not making it up. There's something deep inside that says, well, you're better off when you're locked away in your bedroom. You don't have to deal with conflict. You don't get judged. There are no expectations on you. You can actually simply only focus on surviving on yourself. That is a pattern that can be at the root of it. And of course, in that pattern, you are like in an inner tug of war. A part of you pulls you into, I want to no longer have pain, and the other side still says, no, that's a better place, because as soon as you feel better, then all this potential danger is waiting for you.
Oh, so kind of like a positive feedback to having the illness or the disease.
Yeah,
You're getting a
a
positive
positive reason.
benefit,
Yes.
which you're not even aware of. Those are tricky subconscious things that can happen when a disease gives you something positive that's difficult to let go of. I know it's very difficult in this day and age with all of the media and things that we have for people to really be seen as who they are and accept themselves really for who they are. And I think sometimes that plays into manifesting pain.
It's not only being seen for who we are, but also realizing who we are. Because I think in our day and age, we orient ourselves so much on the external, because there is so much stimulation and there is so much input on how we are supposed to think and how we are supposed to look and what we are supposed to wear and what gadgets we are supposed to buy. There is very little room for individuality. And I think this is really a problem, because it gives us constantly an overstimulation of identity or of ideas about ourselves, and we don't have the space and the quietness and maybe the boredom to find out ourselves. And I see this very often these days. We do sometimes retreats, and people come into these beautiful environments and they're very relaxed, but at some point they're pulling out their iPads and they're going on Facebook and they're twittering around, and it's all nice and good, but in that moment they leave their body. In that moment they're not present, they're not with nature, they're somewhere else. And we do this unfortunately way too often. And when we leave our body, who is in charge? Who is actually taking care of it? And that is where the subconscious comes in, because the subconscious says, okay, I'll do it. But unfortunately, the subconscious often does the things that it was used to. And if we have a background or an upbringing of, trauma or feeling unsafe or feeling not good enough, and that is imprinted in the subconscious, then the subconscious continues with the same patterns. It continues with the same stress, with the same vigilance, with the same tension, simply because it never got a new direction. It never really got a new way of seeing oneself and seeing the world. And this is what we also really, are missing out when we are constantly distracting ourselves and living more up here than really inside of ourselves.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I know being plugged in is it's so difficult for people to let go. I know I have trouble with that myself from time to time. You pick up the cell phone because it's so easy just to disconnect and scroll through Facebook or something instead of really think about, what's going on with you or what you'd really like to do that day, going out and taking a walk. There's a lot of indoor stuff that's happening to people too. And for those of you listening that maybe have patterns that repeat in your life, imprinting on the subconscious is pretty profound. If you are seeing the same thing over and over again that you remember from childhood and it's happened in a relationship or with your children or something, maybe you got stuck on autopilot at some point and it's something you need to address.
Very much so, autopilot. It's a very good expression.
The perfect way of thinking of it. The subconscious is your autopilot when you're not paying attention. I'm a big fan of Adam Sandler's work, and he did that movie Click. He was fast forwarding through pieces of his life with his remote control, and his body would go on autopilot, and it really kind of destroyed his life. So
right. I remember that movie. It was very funny.
Yeah, funny and great at the
yes,
same time.
That's true. That's true.
Okay. Well, I think your work is really incredible. So anyone out there, if you'd like to check into Dr. Schaub's work, look at the fearandanxietysolution.com and as well as his cellularwisdom.com. Both websites are really great, full of wonderful information. And you can certainly reach out to Dr. Schaub wherever he is in the world. I believe today you said you're in Paris. So anywhere you are in the world, you can reach Dr. Schaub.
Yeah, and you also, if you want to work on the subconscious already, which is often for people quite an ominous thing to do, I have a book that's called The Fear and Anxiety Solution, and it gives you a wonderful pathway with great tools to just start to befriend your subconscious, understand it better, and also, like we said, get it out of this autopilot mode and really work with it, collaborate it, which can benefit you. No matter if you feel like you have been stuck in fear and anxiety or not, going through the processes and the inside of this book will make you feel more whole. And so I really recommend you to delve a little bit into it.
Yeah, get to know yourself on that personal level. That's an
That's
excellent
right.
message. It has been a pleasure speaking with you today, Dr. Schaub. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And yeah, let's do it again.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have a wonderful day. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.